Hey, Cookies here. We are back with another dungeon walkthrough, and this one's going to be Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. So, very first pack, most important thing to talk about is the Shadow Bone-Mender, or Shadowmoon Bone-Mender. You're going to see her apply a dispellable debuff to one random player here shortly, and you want to instantly dispel that. You could have seen it on the Shaman, and it is very important to dispel that instantly, especially on higher key levels, because it will literally just like if you let more than one tick happen of damage, it'll usually kill somebody on higher keys. So just get in the habit of dispelling it as quickly as possible because it does an absolute ton of damage. Even on lower keys, it's going to do a fair amount of damage. So and that only scales. The Void Spawn that we're going to pull here, so this guy is going to cast Void Pulse. When he does that, it does a very large burst of AoE damage to the entire group. And then he's basically going to have a certain amount of time before he does another Void Pulse. So the whole objective here when fighting these Void Spawns is to just get the group full HP for every Void Pulse. So by the time he casts another Void Pulse, we just want to make sure that everyone is full health. So don't be afraid to use healing cooldowns and stuff like that. Honestly, and see, there he cast 2 Void Pulse rather than doing the Void Eruptions. So it's very important to get everyone topped off very quickly. So don't hesitate to use healing cooldowns on those guys. They are very dangerous. And then here in this pack, we have the Defiled Spirit, which we'll talk about first. So the Defiled Spirit, you'll see, they will just teleport to random range players and then cast Cry of Anguish. And if you're in that, you just take a bunch of damage. And then other than that, we have, I'm trying to think, yeah, see, that was in melee and it hit everybody because oh, it's because we don't have a ranged DPS, that's why. So it's just teleporting to random players, random melee players. Oh, and we lusted on the way back? Okay. That's alright. And then what else do we have in this pack? So we have, let's see. I think for the most part, this pack doesn't really have anything too important. We have the Defiled Spirit. And the Defiled Spirits, we usually just spam cast a... Oh no, these are the ones that teleport you. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused with the Defiled Spirits that are later in the fight. You can get this Void Spawn here, which does happen sometimes. If you take too long to fight these, or if you're over on this side at the wrong time, because he swaps back and forth between the left and right side. So be very careful if you do get this Void Spawn. That's the main concern, and then just watch out for the Defiled Spirits because their AoE will kill you. Gonna get everyone healed up here. It's actually really hard to heal everybody up right now because the Defiled Spirits keep teleporting on me. So much ground effects right now in this expansion, it's actually awful. Alright, I think we have recovered by now, and I think we're good. Looks like we got the clear on Thundering. And then next up, we're just going to have this pack of spiders. They don't do anything. They just do a very mild amount of tank damage, so you just AoE them down real quick. And then downstairs, there's another set of spiders. And then here we're going to have the same pack that we fought at the start of the dungeon, but there's now 3 of the Reanimated Ritual Bones rather than 2. And basically all you need to know about the Reanimated Ritual Bones is they'll just hit the tank really hard with a Void Slash. So you just want to keep the tank nice and healthy during these packs that have the Reanimated Ritual Bones, because they will just do a lot of tank damage. So as long as you know that the tank is going to take a lot of damage, you can keep them nice and healthy, and they should be totally fine. So see, you can see that dispellable debuff. That's 1 tick of the debuff on a 17. It's literally doing 40% of people's HP. So very, very important to interrupt immediately, because it hurts a lot. And another one's going to happen here, so I'm just going to sit and be ready to dispel it. Looks like we got through it without it coming up. Alright, next up we have the boss. And what she's going to do, the first ability cast... Oh, I have, like, no mana. I don't know how I'm using all my mana. The first thing she's going to do is spawn, like, these daggers above everyone's head, or, like, a few players. I think it's 3 players at a time. And generally you just want to kind of stay stacked up so that the daggers don't spawn all over the room, because they leave a puddle on the floor. So it's important to try to, like, group them up. So there you can see dagger fall, and then they'll fall down. You avoid it, and then it just leaves a pool on the ground. Next up, the main healer thing in this fight is Whispers of the Dark. Whispers of the Dark Star. And what that does is it will just deal a large amount of AoE damage to the entire group over a duration of a channel that she does. So that's where you want to make sure that you have healing cooldowns planned and defensives and stuff. And then next up, she will do, I believe it is this next ability coming up. So there's either runes, it's Dark Eclipse. So there's runes here that you see lighting up on the floor, these little circles that I'm, like the one that I'm standing in. And then there's also these runes on the edge of the room. You can stand in either one, but you need to be standing in one by the time that she finishes the cast of Dark Eclipse. Otherwise, so you take a burst of damage no matter what, unavoidable damage, but if you're not inside of one of the stars or one of the moons or runes, you will pretty much instantly die. So make sure you stand in those for Dark Eclipse. And then lastly, she summons an ad, but we're going to talk about that again when it spawns one more time. So here she's going to do another Dark Eclipse. And then as soon as this Dark Eclipse ends, she's going to use the channel ability, so we need to be ready to heal a lot. So see, there, one player wasn't in it. I need to clear my stacks, and then they need to clear on the body, which they're not. Looks like he's hitting a B-res, so we should be okay. There we go. And then the last thing she does is summon these ads, and whenever these ads summon, you can use like crowd control, ring of peace, you can use stuns, all that kind of stuff to keep them, because they'll just walk towards her, and if the ad reaches her, it enrages her, and she does a bunch of extra damage for the next like 20 seconds, and I believe she also heals. Like right there, we didn't kill the ad in time, so that does the same thing if she finishes the cast or the ad reaches her. So now this Dark Eclipse is going to hurt really bad, so I'm going to press 2 defensives here. And then we're also going to get a channel right after this, so it's going to hurt even more. So I am casting at my cooldowns, and we're going to try to keep everybody alive through this in Rage. So it is recoverable if it happens, but it's pretty rough, so just be aware of that. And like here, we shouldn't be killing the ad, we should just CC it and kill the boss, because the boss literally has the same HP as the ad almost. But that's okay. I can run over and Touch of Death it. If we get it low enough in time, right about there. Right about there. There we go.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Now she's going to do another Dark Eclipse. And you can be on either side, but it's best to be in one of the moons or runes that are on the side that like the darkness is traveling from. So you saw the darkness like traveling from this side over to that side. So you want to pick a rune or a moon on this side somewhere. And you can stack up with other people. It's totally fine. They're not like individually, you know, they're not unique. So everybody can stand on the same one if you wanted to. But you take a little bit less damage if you're on the side of where the darkness is coming from. It's really not that big of a deal, but it does avoid a little bit of damage, because you take ticking damage like while the whole event is happening. Okay, so next pack, let's recover a little bit first. So these guys, you don't actually have to interrupt any of them. They just spam cast Domination, but we have a Paladin, so he's going to interrupt all of them. So if you don't interrupt them, that's kind of the trick, and you can get away with just like having them sit there and spam cast, and then the only person that takes damage is the tank. The other option is you interrupt them, and then now you have to make sure that all the Dominators, the Shadowmoon Dominators, stay interrupted, because they cast Rending Voidlash, which just targets random players. You can see it there on the Shamans, and that just does a bunch of damage. And then they also cast Domination, and if they get that cast off, it just mind controls a player. And does a bunch of damage to them. So, or actually, sorry, it doesn't do damage to them, but it makes them attackable, which means that all your AoE and stuff is going to be doing damage to them. So, You have to interrupt their 2 casts, or they will be casting Domination on these little ads when you get up here all the time. They'll always be casting Domination already on like an NPC, and you can just let them cast that and just not interrupt them. And then you don't have to kick. But as soon as you stun or kick them, then they start casting their abilities on players instead. And then here we have the Exhumer, so they are going to summon these 2 nearby ads, and everything just needs to be interrupted. So you have the Exhumer casting Void Bolt, which isn't that dangerous, but it does do a moderate amount of damage to a random player. And then the Exhumed Spirits, those guys are going to cast Death Blast, and this will literally one-shot somebody if you let it cast. So you want to make sure you interrupt all of those casts. Again, the like Death Blast is definitely more important than the Exhumer. You can let the Void Bolts go off. It's more important to interrupt the spirits. And also these spirits activate if you step on these runes, which I'm wondering if this group is going to or not. I guess we'll see here in a second. So whenever you pull an Exhumer, they will activate whatever nearby runes are, but also there's runes on the floor here. You can see these little like squares with this stuff coming out of them, and that if you step on these, they will spawn one of the Defiled Spirits or whatever I think they were called. I don't remember what they were called already. The guys that cast Death Blast. So you can kind of walk around here and get through an opening, and then just make sure you don't step on these. They're kind of scattered throughout the room, like towards the edges of the room, so it's just something you want to be careful of.
Your souls are strong and proud. I will feast on your terror.
And then this boss, he's just going to cast Void Blast, which is a frontal that he does, so make sure you're not in front of him. And then it'll just guaranteed hit the tank, and it'll follow the tank around. So you want to make sure that the tank is nice and healthy for that. Next, he'll teleport to a random player and cast Void Vortex, which just pulls you in and does a moderate amount of damage. Or I guess a light amount of damage, I should say. You just get out of it. And then the last thing he does is he's going to cast Soul Steal, where he spawns this little ad, and he splits you all up, so you're all in different instances. And then you have to kill your ad, and then once you kill it, you just click on it, and it teleports you back to the regular like realm. And everybody takes constant unavoidable ticking damage while they're fighting their ad and in that realm, like that separate realm. So you want to make sure that everyone's nice and healthy going into it, especially on weeks like Grievous and stuff, because people can fall over pretty quick. He also does cast Void Devastation right here, but it just spawns a bunch of swirlies. It's not important to talk about. You just avoid the swirlies. And that's the whole boss fight. He really doesn't do too much. He's kind of a target dummy. But there are a few important things. And again, on like Grievous Week and stuff, you definitely want to be aware of the ad phase and stuff, because it can get a lot of people killed if you're not prepared for it. Usually try to throw like some hots or some defensive, like externals and stuff on people as they're going into that phase, just to make sure that everyone's healthy. And then here again, we have the Dominators, same exact thing as before. So we just interrupt everything, interrupt casts, but ideally you go into this pack and you just don't interrupt the Dominators, but a lot of the time in pug groups it's just going to happen, so just expect and be prepared to interrupt and help interrupt the Dominators. You can use knockbacks, you can use regular interrupts, you can use stuns, all that stuff. So as a healer you can definitely find ways to help out, because there's going to be a lot of interrupts going on. The only reason that this group isn't really struggling with it is because we have a prop paladin, so we have a lot of extra interrupts. Alright, and then next up we have the spiders. They are called the Monstrous Corpse Spiders and the Plague Bats. So the Monstrous Corpse Spider is just going to cast Necrotic Burst on a short cooldown. You usually just need one person to keep it interrupted, I believe. And then as long as they're like a melee interrupt, and then if the cast goes off, it puts a disease on everybody in the group, and it's a very heavy hitting disease. It's for like 10 seconds or something, so it's pretty rough, so don't let that go off. And then the Plagued Bats, they just spam cast Plague Spit, and if that goes on people, it puts a like moderate damage dealing disease dispel debuff on them. So if you have a disease dispel, you can dispel it. Also, it gets removed with anything that removes like roots and slows. So, for instance, you can like Hand of Freedom people as a Holy Paladin and it will remove the dot. You can Tiger's Lust people as a Mistweaver Monk and it'll remove the dot. And you can also use like self abilities, like Druids can shapeshift and it'll remove it, stuff like that. And then here, same exact pack, but this time we have 2 spiders. So as a healer, you're going to want to help out, especially in pugs. Watch one of the spiders and just keep it interrupted. And I think that guy just got aggro on all the little spiders or something. Got melee to death. Because otherwise you shouldn't really... There's no damage here, it's all avoidable. Besides the tank just getting auto-attacked. And then if one of the casts goes off, then you want to be ready to do some really big healing and drop like a healing cooldown and stuff. And then here we're going to have 4 of the Plague Bats all in a patrol together. And it's pretty rough because there will be a lot of casts that are going off. So this is where you want to use stuns and stuff. And then with the bats, we have this Carion Worm. And the Carion Worm is going to do 2 main things. He's going to cast Fetid Spit on random players. It does a light amount of damage, so you just make sure people are topped up for that. And then he does Body Slam, which throws this big like frontal at the tank. And if you get hit by it, it will knock you back into the water back here, and you have to like slowly make your way back up to get back up here, and it's really rough. By using these like water spouts, you go step in one of these and jump in it, and then it will pick you up out of the water and throw you back on the bridge. So, and see here, this guy has, well, he had 3 stacks, so I was gonna cleanse him of it, but that just hurts. I guess we may be dying here. Yep, that's just a body slam. All right. Oh yeah, the release points for this dungeon are a little rough sometimes, so you want to make sure you release at the right time. So the first release spot is just the start of the dungeon. The second release spot is here after you kill the second boss. So up until you kill the second boss, you probably don't want to release ever because the run back is really, really long. And then after that, when you kill the third boss, you also release here. So you can release after you kill the second or third boss. Other than that, probably don't release if you have like a res in your group. All right, let's try that again. The bats are optional to pull, so I'm just going to wait to see if the tank actually wants to pull them. Or if he wants to do them like individually or something, since we have plenty of time. Because they just fly around and you have to either be close enough to them or tag them with an ability in order to like bring them down here to the worm. So there's the body slam, we avoid that. And it looks like we're pulling the bats now. That works. And then there I Tiger's Lust myself. I dispel the Shaman to remove the stacks. And then we can leg sweep to interrupt them. And we dispel that one. And actually knock the Spitefuls off the bridge, and it's really funny because they get stuck underneath. I think it's a really bad idea because they can kind of glitch around everywhere, like that right there. He just literally teleported to us. But a funny little thing you can do. And then here we just have another worm, and then these 2 worms that we have fought, they actually go away at 20% HP. You don't actually have to kill them all the way, so when they're 20%, they'll just fade away. And I believe they give you the percentage as that happens. And then basically what happens is you're going to fight them again during the boss fight, and they're going to be at 20% HP during the boss fight, so they'll spawn. I'll explain it like when it actually happens, but it looks like they don't give you the percentage. Maybe just killing the boss gives you... Oh, there it goes. Okay, it did give us the percent. Alright, so this boss. First thing I'm going to mention that's super important is there's lots of random damage that happens. And then the second thing is every time he casts Corpse Breath, he's going to spawn one of these little pools on the floor. If you're a ranged character, so like a ranged healer, or you're standing out in range, you actually want to stand close to the boss pretty much at all times, because you can spawn these pools by him, and then whenever this Inhale ability happens, everyone has to stand in the pool, otherwise they get eaten by the boss, and then he spits you out in the water over here. So it's really important to stand next to him, so that when he does the Corpse Breath, he doesn't spawn a pool like way out there, like how he spawned that pool way out there. But here, like, we're fighting ads anyway, so it's not super important. And then just every time, again, Inhale happens, you want to be standing in one of these pools. If you get too close to the boss while the Inhale's happening and you're not in a pool, he will eat you and spit you out into the water. But again, as long as you're in a pool, even if you're like right next to him in melee range, nothing will happen. And then basically what happens is after that first Inhale, he'll do a giant, the body slam right here. You can see it goes across like the whole entire platform. And then he'll also spawn 2 ads, which will do like a X kind of mark. So like they'll do like a body slam from like the first one here. Hold on. The first one spawns here. The second one spawns here, and they'll do a body slam like across the room, like to that. So it's like an X shape. So it's like X to purple is one of the body slams, and then blue to green is one of the body slams from the ads, if that makes sense. So you have a body slam through the middle from the boss, and then right after that, the 2 ads will do a body slam across these markers. So you usually just want to be tucked like right here in the corner where you won't get hit by any of the body slams. And the ads will only body slam 1 time. And then there's basically 2 options when fighting the ads. Is you can either ignore them and just let the healer heal through it, so depending on your comfort level, or you kill them because they have such little HP because you already did a bunch of damage to them during the intermission, or like during the bridge. So you can either kill them or just leave them alone and hit the boss. And then the boss is going to randomly submerge. Every time he submerges, he goes to a random new location, either X blue, or it would be like the new green that I put down. And basically, if the ads are still alive, they will also submerge and randomly spawn in new locations as well, of one of those 3 spots. And that's pretty much the whole fight. So, as a healer, the most important thing is people take a lot of random damage during that fight. He just kind of randomly spits damage at people. And then especially while the ads are alive, because the ads will attack the closest player to them just constantly. And so the tank can't really tank the boss and the 2 ads. So everyone's going to be taking a fair amount of damage during the ads being alive. So you want to be aware of that. And then here we just have a copy of a previous pull we did, which is 2 of the monstrous spiders and then 2 of the bats. So just keep dispels on people, keep the spiders interrupted. The spiders are much more important than the bats to interrupt, because the spiders will kill your group, the bats will just do damage to people, not necessarily kill anybody. And here we have probably the hardest pull on Fortified Week, or just in general in this dungeon, which is 2 Void Spawns. And they will cast their Void Burst, or whatever it's called, they will cast that very quickly in succession. So like right here, there's the first one, and there's the second one. And then now the next one is going to probably cast pretty soon, so like you have to be really on top of keeping everybody at full HP. And there's another Void Pulse, he decided to do it before the Void Eruption. And then there's another Void Pulse, like it's rough. So use defensives, use health potion, use healing cooldowns. Make sure you're on top of your game for this one. The best advice I can give here, and it doesn't really help when you're pugging, because a lot of the time, like, I mean, it still can help because you can tell people to do this, but you should focus 1 down. Like, you can kind of see that we're focusing 1 down, and that's definitely, like, the best advice I can give, is you want to be just hitting 1 of them and single targeting it, because the faster you kill 1, the easier this becomes. And there I just stepped in a purple puddle and fell behind. So focus 1 down and make sure you use lots of healing cooldowns to stay ahead, and defensives. Defensives are definitely just as important as using healing cooldowns. Hey man, he's got some arms. Alright, and then lastly we have the last boss, which is Ner'zhul. So Ner'zhul will do a few abilities, but overall it's not too bad. It's mostly Just like one main ability that you have to kind of heal the group through. And that is going to be the Omen of Death. So he's going to cast Malevolence. Malevolence is going to spawn just a big cone at a random player. It just aims it towards a random player. And then next up, he's going to cast Omen of Death right there. It spawns this rune. It prioritizes ranged players, but because we don't have any range, I'm going to stand out here, and it should prioritize me. We'll see. He's not going to cast it right now because we're in the intermission. But basically, these runes, the Omen of Death, will do damage to everyone based on, like, your distance to it. So the farther away you are from it, the less damage you take. So here I'm going to stand like all the way in the corner, and it should target me because I'm the person standing out in range, and that's who he prioritizes. It's going to cast here after this Malevolence. Nope, it still likes to target anybody, so never mind. So this is going to be rough because it's going to spawn in melee and just do a ton of damage until we get away from it, which means everyone's going to be taking that damage. Normally, when you have like 1 or 2 range players, it's just one player taking the damage because both players can just spread out like pretty drastically and just spawn the runes super far away from the group to begin with. But here, like, we're literally spawning them on top of us every single time. So it's pretty rough. So just got to be on top of keeping everyone topped up. And whenever the runes spawn, we just do big healing. And here, like, we're getting close to this rune because this is pushing us back, which this is the ad phase that I wasn't explaining because this is really hectic right now, so I'm going to do my best. But he should do one more ad phase maybe, but basically the ad phases, he is just going to spawn a wall of skeletons that are attackable, and there's like a giant purple wall that blocks you from running through them. If you touch the purple wall, you die, or you get a dot that will kill you. And then, oh man, sorry, I gotta focus on not having everyone die here. And I'm gonna die here for sure. Maybe not. Chose myself over the others. Oh no, this is so bad. We just kill boss here. Okay, and then the Ritual of Bones, so it spawns a wall of ads, and you just want to kill one of them, and then it lets you run through, because as soon as you kill one, it breaks that link, like in the wall, and then you can walk through that spot. But you have to be careful not to touch the purple wall still, because if you touch it, you get the dot and you die.